This PowerPoint presentation was originally prepared for the Capitol Area Woodworkers in November of 2019 and was meant to supplement another member's presentation of options for rust removal. Rust-Free was one of the first products that I tried for rust removal on some of the older stationary tools that I was refurbishing. This is a very good product, but it has a couple of downsides that place it at the bottom of my list for choices for rust removal on similar projects. First, it is very expensive. A 1-gallon bottle costs about $70, although smaller quantities are available. The second drawback is that the product itself is somewhat caustic and has a very strong and distinct odor. Both factors are attributed to the fact that the primary ingredient of rust-free is phosphoric acid. Phosphoric acid is one of the few acids capable of converting rust to a soluble iron compound that can be rinsed off with water. However, proper precautions should be taken when using rust-free, including the use of eye protection, good ventilation, and chemical-resistant gloves. This is a photo of a rusty drill press column prior to the application of rust-free. The rust was contained to the surface of the column and it was not pitted. I used a spray bottle to wet the column with rust-free, waited a few minutes, and then began scrubbing at the rust with a green Scotch-Brite scouring pad. Here's the column after applying the rust-free. Most of the rust came off after the first couple of applications, but there were some spots of heavier rust that required additional passes. The rust-free creates a bit of a hazy surface on the metal that needs to be rinsed off with clear water. The metal also needs to be treated with a rust preventative immediately after to prevent the return of new rust. Surprisingly enough, the manufacturer of rust-free also makes an outstanding lubricant for that purpose called Shield T9. T9 is equally expensive, but well worth the money. This is the top of a 1980s vintage Craftsman table saw that had not been well cared for by its previous owner. Again, much of the corrosion was surface rust, but there was some heavier rust in the miter slots as well as several paint splatters. After several applications of rust-free, here is the result. The table cleaned up nicely, but some of the heavier rust required spot applications of navel jelly. Navel jelly also contains phosphoric acid and sells for about $7 a pint and is readily found in any big box hardware store. While rust-free is more in a liquid form, navel jelly is a gel. It's usually applied with a brush, and as a result of being thicker in consistency, it stays where it's applied. Although I've never used Simple Green, many folks do and swear by it as a general cleaner that will also strip away old paint and grease. It's readily available and sells for about $10 a gallon. Those who use it generally do so at full strength. It is advertised as non-toxic and biodegradable, and the main ingredient is listed as water. My first reaction was that $10 a gallon is a steep price to pay for a product that is listed to be 85% water. This is an older vise that someone posted about on Facebook. The poster indicated that he had soaked the vise in Simple Green overnight. This is the result after soaking the vise in Simple Green. While much of the paint is gone, it appears that most of the rust remains. The product that I used, and will discuss next, seems to work much better at half the cost. Instead of driving to Springfield to hunt for Simple Green, I stopped by our local Dollar General store and purchased several gallons of a product called Mean Green. While it is neither non-toxic or biodegradable, I first discovered it when cleaning the floor of my shop. The space I now use was once used by a gentleman who did welding and small engine repair. As a result, the shop floor was covered in a thin film of oil and grease. I used this product diluted in water to mop the shop floor, and after several passes and many buckets of oily brown wastewater, the concrete below began to appear. The primary ingredient in Mean Green is 2-butoxyethanol, a chemical similar to ethylene glycol that is also found in antifreeze. While not extremely hazardous unless it's ingested, there is some risk to using this product, so again, proper precautions should be used: eye protection, good ventilation, and chemical-resistant gloves. This is a Yoast pattern maker's vise that I recently restored. I decided to use it as a test subject for a soak in mean green. The vise was disassembled and all the parts were soaked in mean green from anywhere from 12 hours to several days, given my schedule and my ability to return to the shop to remove them from the bath. As you can see from the liquid, the mean green dissolved rust, paint, and grease with equal ease. This is the faceplate of the vise after an overnight soak of about 18 hours. There were a couple of paint spots that remained, but they were sufficiently loose so as to come off when brushed with a small brass brush. The final product that I have used is called Evaporust. It's available online at various big box stores, some farm stores such as Tractor Supply Company, and at Harbor Freight. It is also somewhat expensive at about $23 a gallon, so it's a good choice when looking to get rid of those Harbor Freight super coupons. It's also touted as non-toxic and biodegradable, and its main ingredient, at least 83% of it, is also water. It's an effective rust remover on par with rust-free. It does have a bit of an odor and can leave surfaces a bit sticky if the cleaning residue is not wiped off. Here's the bed of a 1980s vintage Craftsman lathe that was left to sit in the previous owner's garage for a few years. Again, the rust was not severe, but prevalent on all of the exposed metal parts. Here is a photo of the lathe bed following a few applications of Evaporust and a bit of scrubbing with Scotch-Brite pads. For light surface rust on smaller surfaces, I highly recommend Evaporust. Despite the cost, it works quickly, removes surface rust well, and can be reused. I always keep a bit of it in a spray bottle for spot applications around the shop when it's needed. Smaller parts can be soaked in Evaporust, as were these clamp bolts and other small pieces from the lathe. A word of caution, however. Although it is not advertised as a paint remover, Evaporust will do the job, as shown by these previously painted black metal parts following an overnight soak. As mentioned, Evaporust can be reused many times over until you notice that it's no longer effective. When soaking small parts, I filter the Evaporust into a separate container that is clearly marked Used using a funnel and a coffee filter. You can clearly see the residual rust particles left behind from the cleaning process. These are but a few options available to remove rust from woodworking tools and machinery, and it's a matter of personal choice as to which product best suits your individual needs. While some opt for low cost, others are more comfortable working with non-toxic, environmentally friendly products. Regardless of which product or method you use, one critical thing to remember when derusting your tools and machinery is to finish the process off by applying a moisture barrier to the metal after cleaning it. A light coat of Johnson's paste wax or any of the commercial products available will serve that purpose. Failing to do so will only mean that you will be repeating the process of fending off new rust time and again. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and thanks.